Also, for more on this, we're now being joined by our correspondent Dharamjot Kaur. Dharamjot, thank you so much for joining us. Also, I have to mention, Saleh, Dharamjot's outlook on this entire budget. It has been switching with the skies as well. Dharamjot, now I want to ask you, we were discussing relief for the middle class. What's your outlook at this point and perhaps the key takeaways from this budget?
Well, Hema, I have to mention, where anticipation was so high here outside the parliament with respect to what the announcement would be. And when the finance minister finally came to that, there was a wave of jubilance here, at least among the onlookers and especially the media staff that's present over here. So clearly, there is a level of happiness, there is a level of relief in the middle class and the salaried, class of India. I mean, I have to mention from a total exempt of 7 lakhs to now a total exempt of 12 lakhs. That's over a 70% jump. So there's definitely a positive response early on with respect to what the new tax, with respect to what the new tax slabs and the exemptions are under the new tax regime. It's important to note here, though, for our viewers, Hem, that the old tax regime still remains unchanged. So there are no announcements on that front. Also, it's pertinent to note that the finance minister has not made any announcement with respect to, whether the old tax regime will be ending anytime soon. So the two still continue to exist in tandem. That is something that I think our viewers should gain clarity on. But having said that, if we do a quick comparison between the old and the new regime, I think that will be something that is of big importance. For the old regime, it was up to 3 lakhs, which had complete exemption of tax, and then 3 to 7 had 5%, 7 to 10 had 10%, and then it was above 15 lakh that had 30%. Comparing it to the changes that have been announced now, where up to 12 lakh there's no tax, and then the slabs are as follows: 0 to 4 lakhs there is no tax, it's nil. 4 to 8 is 5%, 8 to 12 lakhs 10%, 12 to 16 lakhs 15%. 16 to 20 lakhs, 20%, 20 to 24 lakhs, 25%, and then above 24 lakhs now is a 30% tax slab here.
Indeed, Dharamjot, this of course has been a budget that a lot of people have indeed been fairly optimistic in terms of the impact that it will have. The Sensex is of course up. The Sensex at this moment as we speak is well over 500 points in. So the markets have reacted fairly positively. It is not a mood of jubilation. At a point of time, once the fiscal deficit had been announced, there was a bit of a dip in the market, but the markets are back up again. They are trading in the green, well over 500 points. And on the broadcast, we've got Mr. Adil Shetty, the Chief Executive Officer and also the co-founder of bankbazaar.com and also the co-chair of the FICCI FinTech Committee is joining us live on this broadcast from Mumbai. Mr. Shetty, this is a budget which the market seems to have reacted fairly cautiously and optimistically. In your assessment, do you think the finance minister has gone ahead and addressed a lot of the concerns which the finance community in India had?
I do think so, right? And see, we were speaking in the morning saying that they could look to adjust tax slabs by inflation, look to cut tax rate. Finance Minister, I think this is brilliant. She's done all three. So she's increased the tax slabs to adjust for inflation. She's given a higher rebate. And, effectively the tax rate has come down between 15 lakh and 24 lakh. But let's break it down. I'll give you one data point, which is really exciting. So you already spoke about how up to 12.75 lakh with the standard deduction, you don't pay tax. But let's assume you make 25 lakhs a year compared to the previous new tax regime in the current year. Right. In the next year, you'll be paying 9,500 rupees less per month in income tax, or 1.1 lakhs less next year in income tax at the 25 lakh slab. Now think about it, that's like putting 5% more in your pocket. And I think the finance minister really has given a reason, right? Where people now have that 5% more and they can use it, for whatever purpose they choose.
It's interesting that you point out that very interesting facet, because earlier the philosophy of the government had been to tax from the people so that the government can use those funds and then invest in creating capital infrastructure, so that the government was choosing where the money would go in the growth of the nation. But what that resulted, some would say, is there was a dip in private consumption. Do you think this is a realization and acknowledged by the government that it is better to put money in the hands of the people and they could then choose to invest it, which could increase economic activity in the economy?
See, I think that's an interesting take, but we're all learning and the situation is fairly dynamic. There was a point in time, a decade ago where direct tax revenue was 1.5% of GDP. Today, it's not at 3%. So I think we've realized that, there is money going into building infrastructure, but probably the wage hikes, right, have not been as high as we wanted in the last few years. So now the situation is different. So we need to continue to build infrastructure. We, in fact, need to invest more in digital infrastructure. The FM spoke for about 3 minutes on central KYC and how they're going to revamp the whole system. They're going to make sure that the data is better, the data is more updated, KYC costs go down. But I think there is also a need to drive consumption in the middle class.
Right.
And putting back 9,500 rupees per month in someone's pocket who makes 25 lakhs a year, 2 lakhs a month, right?
Right.
That's giving them a 5% increment, which I think is very good.
Right.
Mr. Shetty, of course, we discussed MSMEs in digital and fintech investments in depth earlier as well. And to that, I want to ask you, the budget does include measures for enhancing efficacy of MSMEs, including funds. So we asked Mr. Jan Krishna this as well. How will these initiatives influence the overall landscape? Are you happy with the reforms that have been announced?
I am, right? And I'll just pick one of them and just explain it to you. So you remember when COVID happened, they said a credit guarantee, you can take up to 5 crores if you're an MSME. Now that's gone up to 10 crores. That's really good, right? Because 5 crores more for an MSME will allow them to invest, will allow them to hire. That's a lot of money. And the government, again, like COVID, is doing it smartly. So they're giving it as a credit guarantee. So you're not giving MSMEs 5 crores each. We don't have that much money. But by giving it as a credit guarantee, right, you're ensuring onward lending through the banks, which I think is brilliant. They also spoke about a second fund of funds. So they're saying the government for the second time will put in 10 lakh crores, and then the private sector will amplify it 10x. Now, she said that the first time they did it, the amplification has gone, their 10,000 crores has gone to 97,000 crores via the private sector. Now they're doing it for a second time. So I like what they're talking about in terms of startups and MSMEs. One, I like the credit access increase, increasing the 5 crores you've given us now to 10 crores under the credit guarantee scheme. We are doing a second fund of funds with, the eventual impact going to be another 100,000 crores going into equity, into fintechs and startups and MSMEs. And lastly, I like the investment in digital public infra like central KYC.
Interesting. Now, Mr. Shetty, one of the things that was talked about a lot, especially for the middle class and for the poorer sections of the people in India, was that of inflation. The fact that the tax slabs have been revised, so there is slightly more amount of money which the middle class, the tax-paying class, will have in their pockets. But do you think this budget goes ahead and addresses the core issue of inflation that we've witnessed since the COVID-19 pandemic, especially food inflation, which is biting the common man and woman of India?
Yeah, so I think on the agricultural side, she spoke of measures to drive up supplies. So she spoke about how the Kisan credit card scheme, right, they had a 3 lakh limit. They've increased the access to that to 5 lakhs. So hopefully, the farmers are going to have a higher access to credit. She spoke about, increasing millet production, with support for increasing production, which already has gone up over the last few years. I like the simplification which has been done on the TCS and the TDS side. So you remember that a lot of senior citizens, were saying that, hey, I'm earning more interest on my savings account than the 50,000. So can you increase it because I don't want to go under the TDS scheme. Now FM has increased it to 1 lakh, right, for senior citizens for no TDS. They've looked at rental, right? So 2.4 lakh today is not what it was 10 years ago.
Right.
So they've said up to 6 lakhs in rental income, the TDS is going to go down. I think a lot of people now are having kids who they're educating, right, for a master's or for, another degree abroad. So again, they've said that if you've taken a loan to do it, you don't have to go through the TCS. Also, the LRS limit now is from 7 to 10 for TCS kicking in. So I like the fact that they have smartly tried to give more money in people's hands, and
Right.
also try to help farmers via access to credit.
Right, Mr. Shetty, also with an emphasis on investment as an engine for growth and focus on investment on people. Let's talk about employment generation schemes as well. For labor-intensive sectors, it was mentioned that the government will undertake specific policy and facilitation measures as well. The scheme is expected to generate 22 lakh jobs. Now, I want to ask you, how effective will these measures be in generating employment, and are there any additional reforms perhaps that are required here?
So I think employment generation, we'll need to see the details, and we'll need to see how this plays out. I like the fact that there's more center of excellence for AI. I think AI is sweeping through the entire industry. All of us, have AI apps on our phone. We're using it for our work. It doesn't matter, what level of job you're in. You need these skills today. I like the fact that more investment is there in the IITs. These AI centers are being created. And I think it's part of an ongoing program, right? So the internship scheme is starting to kick in. Let's wait to see the details, and let's be aware that, we have a huge young population with very, very big aspirations. I think the core to solving for this is to become an innovation economy. We need to figure out how India is going to start churning out AI apps, how India is going to make use of digital public infra, how the smallest kirana shop can get access to credit using digital public infrastructure.
Right.
CKYC is going to cut costs to give citizens and small businesses credit. So I'm excited to see how this plays out.
It's interesting that you mentioned AI, and one of the things that stood out was, of course, the announcement that Nirmala Sitharaman made, where she said that she would be, allocating a sum of 500 crores for the setting up of a Center for Excellence in AI for Education. Now, contrast that with the announcement that was made by Donald Trump just last week on the 24th of January, where he put out a figure of $500 billion to dominate the world of AI by the Americans. Do you think India is doing enough, considering that AI is going to be the future?
Yeah, so I think it's a constantly evolving situation. So, it's not like we can't relook and take more decisions, more policies 3 months, 6 months down the road. I think what the Indian government's always tried to do, right, is ride on a multiplier effect.
Right.
So just to give you an example, look at this equity fund of funds. So in the first fund, FM called it out. She said, we put in 10,000 crores. And we put it into these various venture capital and private equity firms, and they onward did 97,000 crores. So I think in India, we're a country wherein we have to find smart solutions. Look at what DeepSeek did, right? Mm-hmm. They're claiming that with $5 million,
right,
they have done what US companies did with $10 billion.
Right.
So I think it's an evolving situation. We've made a start. We have certain core advantages, right? Look at the amount of data that India generates for AI training. Now, can we create a digital public infra for anonymized consent-based AI data and open that up to AI companies in India to train their models? The US doesn't have access to so much digital data being generated, but
right,
can we build a secure environment? So I think it's an ongoing exercise. Have we done enough?
Right.
Absolutely. We need to keep learning. And, every quarter we need to see what more we can do to unleash the innovation spirits, because truly I believe that startups, innovation,
right,
that's what's going to provide jobs in India.
No, indeed, it is still a work in progress, and you're being optimistic in terms of the outlay. But one would, of course, expect that policies, when they're made for the next coming decade. But this, of course, can change. 500 crores is what has been allocated this month for the Center of Excellence for AI. But this is going to be an issue that will be talked about a lot, because you are building a nation,
right,
where the youth are so ambitious and so enterprising. And we, of course, have to be looking at that. Mr. Adil Shetty, one of the other aspects that will be talked about a lot is 100% FDI in the sector of insurance. How do you think that is going to change the insurance sector in India?
So, insurance is a very, very important product. People don't realize that, but one of the biggest reasons that causes financial collapse, and this is documented in America, is, you have a big medical emergency and you've not taken sufficient health insurance, or the breadwinning person in the family dies, and that person hasn't taken 10 times their annual salary as insurance. So I think having more foreign capital come in insurance technology, in distribution, in insurance companies, I think it's good news. And also, I think for the entire sector, what has been done with central KYC, because one of the big things in financial services is how do you drive the KYC costs down, and how do you onboard digitally so that you can be in the smallest village in India,
Right.
but yet you're able to buy an insurance policy or get access to a credit loan or a credit card. So I think investing in technology and allowing FDI
Right.
are good moves for the insurance industry.
Interesting. And do continue to stay on with us, Mr. Adil Shetty, in the studio. We'll, of course, have my colleague Rahesha Sehgal, of course, be joining us in a bit. But this is, of course, an important budget. It's a budget that I'm pretty sure has made the middle class fairly happy in terms of the announcements that have been made in the change of the tax slab rates. The middle class, of course, will have slightly a little bit more amount of money in their pockets this time round that they can, of course, spend. But one of the big issues was, of course, the dip that had been witnessed in private consumption. Nirmala Sitharaman, through the changes that she has made in the tax slabs, has indeed, to a certain extent, addressed that. But at this moment, the elephant in the room is, of course, the job creation for the youth. For many decades, economists in India have been talking about how India will have its demographic dividend and will have the biggest amount of youth who would, of course, be working in India, which would contribute to the nation's development. Mr. Adil Shetty, in your assessment, has enough been done? It, of course, is a work in progress, but have enough announcements been done for the youth to tap into that demographic dividend that India is experiencing at this moment?
Yeah, see, to enable youth, what can we do, right? That's in our control. So one is obviously education, skilling, making sure that, the latest technologies like AI that are developing over globally, that we have centers of excellence, we have training institutes. And secondly, to make sure that when a youth starts his small enterprise, that person has access to digital public infra so that business can scale seamlessly. I think all the basic building blocks are being put into place.
Right.
We need to constantly reassess the result. We saw, for example, the first startup fund of funds now has been fully deployed, and the second one has come out. Now, this 10 lakh crore doubling of the credit guarantee for MSMEs, let's see how that plays out. Because these MSMEs are going to hire the youth, right? And the startups with the fund of funds of 100,000 crore are going to do the same. So I think I like the steps that the FM has taken. I think we constantly need to be vigilant. We need to see the results, and we need to take further measures, both in building our startup ecosystem, building our digital public infra, and enabling the youth, right, to create jobs via new businesses.
Right, Mr. Adil. Just on that, I want to take the point further that there was also a lot of emphasis on the labor incentivized sectors that the finance minister made during a budget speech, where she spoke about generating jobs in India and also making India one of the major toy hub production houses.
So I think that's always been a focus, right? Children in India love their toys, and we want to make sure that they're manufactured in India, because the last thing we want is, precious foreign exchange reserves being moving out of the country. Now, I think to be able to build the kind of demand that we're seeing in India, even take something small like Lego, right? There's an incredible opportunity, and there's no reason to import all these goods. I think she's picked a few sectors. She spoke about the textile sector. She spoke about the toy making sector. She spoke about manufacturing. It's good to see that these sectors which we can make in India are getting a push in the budget. It's definitely, toys are something that the increasing domestic demand, we should look to see how we can build 1,000 interesting companies. More of them are starting to come out in
Right.
India in high-end kids games. So I think it's a great opportunity for Indian entrepreneurs.
Right, Mr. Adil, thank you so much for joining us on WION with your insights on this.